after the last video, I went searching for news about Trump since then. Since that theory that I posted. Well, I mean, since the article that I was talking about. This happened 2 days after the article, 3 days ago from now. But it took me about 15 seconds to find going on Twitter. It was, Donald Trump made a statement saying that he wants the US and its allies to cut off internet access to the Islamic State group and other extremist organizations. And the Associated Press is totally right. There isn't a way to do it. So, one of the problems is that ISIS doesn't just use, for example, their gorgeous, beautifully written, but absolutely terrifying magazine, The Dabiq. They also use Twitter and Facebook and forums and image boards and chat, like random open chat rooms, though I can't imagine anybody using those very much anymore. The point is, though, is how would you even go about such a ridiculous, almost, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Ignoramus idea? Is this? I mean, let's be fair. I don't know if Trump knows how the internet works, but he's thought, I mean, sites have been shut down before by the government, so I suppose that it would be reasonable to suggest, to even demand that the US shut down sites like this. Of course, there's the problem of if the hosting is in another country, you can't really do anything about it. And let's take a look at what the Associated Press said. In his Monday speech, in which Trump also blamed Hillary Clinton and President Barack Obama for the rise of the Islamic State and the instability in the Middle East, even though that started before Obama. But you know what? We'll ignore that. Trump pledged to pursue military operations to, quote, crush and destroy ISIS, unquote. He added that internet attacks and financial warfare will be essential in dismantling Islamic terrorism. Now, let's be fair. That is a pretty decent idea, at least in theory. Internet attacks would include, your typical cyber warfare, hacking into ISIS sites and bringing them down, or perhaps changing them, perhaps infecting them with a piece of malware or a keylogger or some piece of spyware that basically tells us everything that's going on. Now, of course, because of how decentralized their recruiting is, and oftentimes is done just by word of mouth from one person to another, the practicality of clamping down on all of these different sources is incredibly low. And I mean, it's entirely unfeasible. So he says that we cannot allow the internet to be used as a recruiting tool and for other purposes by our enemy. We must shut down their access to this form of communication, and we must do so immediately. Okay, so the question is, how do you shut down a decentralized organization's method of communication? Well, if they use Twitter, then you have to take down Twitter. If they use Facebook, then you have to take down Facebook. If they send emails through Yahoo, you have to take down fucking Yahoo. The practical application of this is just the logical conclusion is that you would have to take down any communication method on the internet, which just it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, so then they say the first obstacle is the internet itself. The US doesn't control the internet. No one does. Definitely true. Definitely true. Global web of networks. All right. Even within the US, ferreting out extremist groups and kicking them off the internet isn't realistic, given how rapidly the internet grows and changes. And people have a long history of finding their way around internet restrictions, whether it's democracy activists in China or Iran, or tweens looking to circumvent their school's firewall. That last line rings especially true. That is like 60% of what we spent our time doing the first year that I was in high school. And then as soon as we figured out the Wi-Fi password, because it was a WEP key and it only took us like 40 minutes to crack, and how to, it's like once you got connected, figuring out the proxies that you would need to use to connect to the internet, and then layering proxies so that you could get not only connect to the internet from an outside device, but also connect to sites that you shouldn't be able to connect to on the school firewall. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. So then the Associated Press talks about the problem with social media, which is what I was just talking about. So Twitter and Facebook say they don't tolerate posts that promote violence and remove such posts. But that does not necessarily mean everybody. Yeah, I mean, it says, there's nothing stopping banned users from opening new accounts under different names and basically creating whack-a-mole. But other than that, there are people that they don't catch all the time. You hear stories from, like, the Dabiq and somebody, or in other news stories about how somebody, like, from the US, for example, becomes a radicalized Islamist. And I have heard somebody say that there was somebody on Twitter that they started talking to. And then that turned into emails, and then, then that person is flying off to the Middle East to be trained by ISIS. Now, this is... Oh, yeah. So far, internet companies have resisted preemptively blocking posts, partly because that would require judgment calls about what constitutes terrorism, which, yes, is a very broad definition and is definitely subjective. Of course, there's also the First Amendment, and then we could have the conversation about free speech versus unfettered speech. And that is an argument that I'm not going to have today, because that is a complicated topic. Just to break it down, free speech means that you can say a lot of things. The only things that you can't say are things that specifically break a law, such as, speech that could be considered terrorism, speech that slander, libel. These are things that you can't do in America under free speech. Unfettered speech, though, is a system wherein all speech is allowed, regardless of intent or truth or I mean, it's just offensiveness. You can say whatever you want and there's no repercussions. While there are merits, there are pros and cons to each side. I'm going to say that it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, from a in this case, that's not as much of the issue as it is the feasibility of such an attack of doing so. This would require centralized power on the internet, and that's not gonna happen. It's just not. It's just not. People aren't gonna let it happen. So it's not gonna happen. And then this next part talks about the rise of cyber warfare, and that goes up to my point earlier, where cyber warfare is not a bad idea. It's not a new idea, but it's not a bad idea. So basically, Trump's idea, shutting down the internet to fight ISIS's ability to communicate, unfeasible. But fighting them with cyber warfare and as well as financial warfare, being able to cut off their ability to purchase weapons and, I don't even know everything that ISIS spends money on. I mean, even if you hinder their ability to put out their publication, as often, or get fewer guns, or less explosives, or I don't know, the fewer resources to fly people out to be trained to be terrorists. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you can figure being able to fight them financially is also an excellent idea. I don't know that Trump would know how to do that. I mean, I know that he is the great deal maker, but this isn't. You have to know about black market economics, and I know a little bit about black market economics, but it's a big, broad, complex subject, and black market economies aren't easy to just stop existing. That's part of what being a black market economy is figuring out a way to sell illegal shit under the radar. I mean, but anyways, /rant. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. Go watch some of my other videos. Check out the annotations on the side. It'll probably be other videos about Trump, because I can't seem to escape the black hole that is news articles talking about the shit that Trump said today. In fact, as I'm recording this on the 21st, I haven't even checked Twitter, but I can bet that there will be something that Trump said today that will be dumb as fuck. Now, I've already explained why I think that this might be, but... And in fact, actually, I think that I'll link to that video so you guys can see it. Yeah, anyways. Peace out.